All right, we're back at it, and I gotta start some good intro music because this will be representative of the topic at hand. I don't know if you remember this classic that they played on BET. They played this. I think this came out in '98. I'm not sure if you remember that Young Bleed, My Balls and My Word. This was an artist on Baton Rouge. He didn't really make it real big. He had a song you probably heard before called "How You Do That There." I don't know.
Do that there.
Yeah, that was Young Bleed. Young Bleed with Master P. That was another classic.
Run off the wheel and get your ass whipped blue black. My nigga, my nerve fresh off the curb. Humble for months and days tripping off the blunt. Nigga, we don't care. Niggas holla how you do that day.
What year was that when that came out, man? Now he's not from New Orleans. That that dude that was on there, Master P's from New Orleans, but Young Bleed is from Baton Rouge.
Baton Rouge, that's another city, though.
You said what now?
That's just a neighboring city.
Yeah, well, it's a ways. It ain't neighboring like our city between St. Paul and Minneapolis, and we'll get into that because we're gonna spend a long time on our listeners. For anybody that doesn't know about the escapes and stuff in Louisiana, we're gonna go through a lot of articles, a lot of videos, why people are running away. Not just because they can, but if you really knew what was going on in these facilities, you probably wouldn't stay either. But Baton Rouge is the capital. For those that don't know, I have not been there yet. I hope to go one day. But I have been to New Orleans, and I talk about that. I talked about that quite a bit, on my podcast. I was very, very sad when I left. I will tell you, New Orleans, there's no city. I don't think there's no city on the planet Earth that's like New Orleans. There's definitely no city like it in the United States of America. It's Louisiana is its own thing. It's the Deep South, but it's you'd have to really go there to really, really get an understanding of the culture. I mean, you could see it, you could listen to the music. I mean, you could listen to, they say jazz was the birthplace of jazz was in New Orleans, blues, but like jazz. They call it jazz. I don't think musicians called that jazz during that time. They called it the blues. But, of course, it's blues based. But that was the birthplace. One of the main birthplaces was New Orleans, created by foundational blacks down there. Bounce music, New Orleans. Baton Rouge, the music is similar, but it's a little different. It's Baton Rouge, and let's just get the math right, because I like to bring up maps, because we're going to be using a lot of maps tonight with some of the things we're going to be discussing. I believe LSU is in Baton Rouge. Yeah, LSU. I think Angel Reese came up out of there. LSU is one of the most famous universities in the South, in the United States, for that matter. I don't know a lot about LSU, but I've heard about LSU for forever. Like, they treat LSU like the NFL down there. It's one thing that a lot of family members would tell me. When you go to the South, they treat their athletes like superstars down there. College ball in the South is just if not bigger, as big as the NBA. Sold out.
Well, you got to
stadiums.
take into account they don't have any pro teams in Louisiana.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what teams they got. They might have.
They got all out.
Let me
they
see.
Don't have they have NFL. I'm sorry, never mind.
Okay, so they got the Saints, and then the Pelicans. Are the Pelicans any good?
No.
They're not any good. Or they
no.
okay. Now, Okay, so were they always called the Pelicans? Oh, the Hornets.
No.
The Horn. Okay, they were called the Hornets.
Hornets. Yeah.
Who is that dude I used to like on the Hornets?
What happened is they were the Charlotte Hornets.
The Charlotte
and then
Hornets.
And then Charlotte moved to New Orleans.
Oh.
So they became the New Orleans Hornets.
That's very interesting.
Hold on. But then Charlotte, years later, got to get another NBA team. So they wanted the rights to the Hornets name back. So then the New Orleans changed their name to the Pelicans. Now the Charlotte, and then Charlotte changed their name to the Bobcats for a few years. And the reason they did that is they were bought by Rob Bobcat.
Okay.
The former owner of BET.
Were they called the Oklahoma City Hornets?
No, maybe a long time ago. I don't know. Not in the last 40, 50 years.
I see something here where I'm on the site, or I'm on Wikipedia, of course. The Pelicans were established as the New Orleans Hornet in the 02-03 season, with George Shinn, the owner of the Charlotte Hornets, relocated the franchise to New Orleans. Due to the damage caused by Katrina, the team temporarily relocated to Oklahoma City, where they spent 2 seasons.
Yeah, for a year. I think for a year or two they played, but they were never. They weren't Oklahoma's team.
Okay,
Oklahoma got a team years later. Once the NBA seen how many, so when New Orleans couldn't play in New Orleans, they played in Oklahoma.
Oh,
the NBA seen how many fans were interested in going there from Oklahoma, so they said, let's get Oklahoma their own team, because they could see there's a lot of fans.
Okay, I see.
So that's how, because they couldn't play in New Orleans. So they had to play somewhere close, so they just played all their home games in Oklahoma. So then the NBA seen, wait a minute, there's a fan base here. So why don't we put a permanent team here? So they took Seattle, the Seattle Supersonics, and they moved them to Oklahoma.
I didn't know why LSU was so big, but I'm looking at their website. At LSU, Louisiana's flagship institution, the research we perform is not only our duty, it's what drives us, from cancer to diabetes to coastal sustainability, energy, and agriculture. LSU achieved $488 million in research activity across its 8 campuses to advance Louisiana in the world. This achievement generated $1.3 billion in economic impact for Louisiana. That's a lot of money, man. So
when you watch NFL on Sundays, people watch NFL, 60 to 70% of the players are from Southern schools.
Right, yeah.
You know, like the best player on the Vikings, Justin Jefferson, he's from LSU.
Oh, yeah, they got some big boys down there, man.
What a South, man. And it's not just that. It's going to go into something. This can kind of tie into what we were talking about hustling in Minnesota. And the economical thing in Minnesota. Minnesota, you can't hustle outside year round, which really hurts your income. It hurts your ability to hustle, limits you. Same thing with sports. When you're in the South, you can play football, basketball year round outside.
Yeah. And you can hustle if need be.
You know what I mean? Anytime you want, you pick up a basketball and go to a court. You don't got to worry about the weather, this and that. Minnesota, you can only play outside basketball 3-4 months of the year. Then you got to find a rec center and this and that, and this is limited. In those southern states, you just pick up and find the ball and just go play all day. So that's why they're superior athletes.
Speaking of which, speaking of heat, this article came out, and we're gonna go do an extreme deep dive. We're gonna spend a lot of time of talking about Louisiana tonight. Now, this is the article. It just came out from NOLA.com. Prisoners in Angola's farmland must get special precautions in high heat, judge rules. So a federal judge ruled Friday that officials at the Louisiana State Penitentiary at Angola must again take special precautions to protect inmates who work in the prison fields during high temperatures. Now, this got to a point. This isn't something where the feds just jumped in. This is family members. This is family members and people. Don't pay too much mind to the news, y'all. You got to hear from the people, the black folks down there in Louisiana. this has been something that's been going on probably for 70 damn years. And they finally probably got the feds in there. The state don't want the feds in there. And I was telling you that earlier. You're like, well, the feds might come in. They might try to, look at, our good brother G Street from New Jack breaking down and exposing the prison system. They don't want the feds in there. Because what the feds going to do is they going to do something like this. They take it as a personal offense. The warden down in them prisons feel like, hey, I want these Negroes to be, literally Angola is a plantation. See, most people, and this is what I used to think. As a kid, I used to hear these stories about Angola, the bloodiest prison in the United States of America. I used to hear these horror stories about Angola. The first time I heard about it, somebody said something about Angola. I think the first time I heard about Angola actually might have been in a rap song. I think I heard Soulja Slim talk about it in an interview. I think he might have been there a little while. And I think BG said something about Angola. And I typed it up. I must have looked it up, and I read it. I said, damn, this shit actually still exists in the 21st century? And so when I really looked it up and I seen, we didn't have Google Maps back then. So I didn't really know what the size of it really was. I didn't know till last week that it was the size of Manhattan. I'm talking about the land. Like this is literally like a city of itself. It's literally a plantation, literally. So you have the prison grounds, but you have like they farm down there. Everything's self-sustained. You have a city to itself. So you were asking me like, well, can you go visit? No. You could go to the rodeo, but they put it in a place, and I remember that video I sent you. They put it in a place where even if you escape, where you gonna go? It's gonna be a situation where you're running through swamps and you're running through fields, literally being chased like an old slave, like. And see, this is something. That's why this conversation is going to be much longer than most of my other podcasts in this regard, because you have to envision yourself thinking about when black folks left the South and went to some went to Florida too. But what I'm saying is, when black folks was leaving those plantations, fighting their way off those plantations, sneaking off the plantations. It wasn't like we're just going to walk off the plantation and then we just get to freedom. Oh, no. When you're dealing with places like Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, especially Louisiana, you have to start asking about the wildlife that they had to suffer. There's poisonous snakes, there's alligators, there's mosquitoes big as your finger, the index of your finger. You got all kinds of, and it's hot, and it's not like someone's stopping giving you a meal. You got dogs chasing you. You have every single reason as to why you're not gonna get free, and they still made it. You see what I'm saying? So when you getting off these plantations, you have and that's why historical context is important, so people can really understand this ain't just like your normal little jail like in Minnesota. You're dealing with places where there was convict leasing. Oh, you're black, we just gonna put you on the chain gang. Well, what was the crime? Oh, you a Negro. They were playing that type of game. So that legacy still lives. So when I've told you about how they could just be like, oh, well, like the day you were walking your dog at Augsburg. Now let's throw you down in Louisiana. This is what would happen at Augsburg. You're walking through LSU, you're walking through Augsburg. Hey, Phil, you did a crime. Now, up here, you told them, yeah, go ahead and lock me up, because you knew you was going to get a paycheck. Don't work that way down there. That's a different ballgame. That's the Deep South. When you get locked up for something, first you're going to have to have some money. They might have a crazy bail because they know you can't afford it, because a lot of people are poor. There's a lot of people down there that got money too. Don't ever get it twisted. There's some black folks that got some paper down there. However, you get the average little kid going to school. He's on his way to work at Burger King or whatever the case may be. And then you look up and the police are saying, well, yeah, man, somebody that got stretched out. Somebody that got flatlined. we need you to to come talk to us just to see if you're not a suspect. And before you know it, you on your way to Angola or the Paris prison. You're on your way to the county jail or something like that. And you're like, well, I didn't do it. I ain't have nothing to do with it. And they be done locked you up and convicted you. I could pull up, there's video after video after video. There's about 100 videos of brothers just coming home after 40 years from Angola for something they didn't even do. Rape cases, murders, all kind of stuff. So you're kind of dealing with a system that operates under the pretense of just blatant white supremacy and just, hey, we ain't got the technology, or we didn't check it. Oh, the camera didn't work, blah, blah, blah. So we have to look at it from that lens first before you get to the heinous crimes of the prisoners. Because, see, Angola itself, you were asking me earlier, well, DP, why are they sending them there? Well, New Orleans Parish is not secure. It's a medium security jail. So they got, like I told you, they don't declassify you. These are dudes that probably should already be somewhere a lot more. They should be somewhere for the crime that they convicted of, whether, and my pretense is I think 25 to 30% of blacks down there is innocent. With a system running like how they do, that's what I assume. But now you still got the other percent. Even if you got that 30 to 25%, let's just say all the others are guilty. They still getting hit with sentences that is like cruel and unusual, like out of proportion. Now, you heard what happened. You were telling me about something that just happened not too long ago. It was some crime. Wasn't it in Minneapolis? It was something you was telling me about that happened?
Today?
Not today, but it was something. Okay, I'm trying to think. Now, that native dude that just shot up all those people over south.
Yeah.
Now, they said that he done took out 3-4 people or something. So they gonna hit him. He's gonna get hit with a life sentence or something crazy. But I'm gonna just put up one little article so I can just show you comparison of the criminal justice systems down there. All right. Now, this woman I told you, there was a robbery in Bloomington, Minnesota. You probably didn't hear about it, but it was a robbery in Bloomington, Minnesota. And I did think it was a little strange, but it was at a gas station. Turns out it's some immigrant that staged a violent robbery so she could overstay her visa. Now, I think they should send her. I think Ice Baby needs to come deport her immediately. They ought to send her somewhere crazy like Angola, if you ask me.
Where's she from?
I don't know where she's from, but she's somewhere. Basically, what she did is, the chief says that a woman had a guy drug her out of a car and put a gun to her stomach with her 5-year-old in the car and took her purse and ran off. Here's my main issue with that. Not the fact that they fresh off the boat and they shouldn't be doing it. That ain't the thing. What if a good Samaritan would have saw that and shot the dude and there would have been a shootout and something happened to the child? That's number one issue in my book. Now, the suspect left his sweater behind, and DNA results led police to a suspect earlier this month. So that makes me wonder if they have DNA results with this dude. Did he commit crimes previously?
So did it happen or did it not happen?
Oh, it absolutely happened. Basically, the woman
didn't make up the story.
Yeah, she made up. Because see, this is what these immigrants and a lot of these illegals are doing. What they'll do, and this is a big thing in New York, they'll be like, all right, I need to stay. I can't go back to my homeland because, well, I'm in danger. So they'll get somebody to smack them upside the head or something like that. And then, they'll look up and say, hey, I've been assaulted. Well, what is the state going to do? They going to say, okay, well, you can't go home. You've been assaulted. I mean, you could stay. You see what I'm saying? So that's how they end up getting the visa, you know, and they citizenship over time. Like, oh, well, I'm in danger. So now it says when the police caught up with the suspect, they learned of a stunning development. Now, this is what Chief Hodges says. When we got his phone, we realized that in his phone, he had communications with the alleged victim in this case. So this dumbass nigga and this dumbass broad thought they were going to come over here and fraud their way into the system, and they left the stuff on the phone. They didn't even deleted it. So Hodges said they both admitted to staging the attack in order to file for a U non-immigrant visa or a U visa. Immigration attorney Nadia Roth says a U visa allows undocumented people, which are illegals, to stay in the U.S. with a path to citizenship if they're a victim of a crime. Now, this is what this guy named Roth said. One of the other reasons why people want it is you won't see a decision from the government for about 8 to 9 years on your actual application. The government reviews your application to make sure it's bona fide and very expeditiously issues a work permit, said Roth. The FBI says they're seeing an increase in purported victims paying to be robbed like this. They arrested a half dozen people for running a similar scheme in Chicago last year. So a lot of these illegals, they done figured out a way where if they scam and scheme, they could get a U visa. Now, this is what Hodges said as well. We in law enforcement still view the U visa as a valuable tool because we want people in the community who are undocumented. What the hell? These folks is out their mind. Anyway, if you are a victim of a crime, or if you witness a crime, we still want them to feel comfortable cooperating with law enforcement, Hodges says. So basically what they're saying is, which is typical sanctuary city talk in Minneapolis, we want the illegals here. Still come to us if you're a victim of a crime. Now, the alleged attacker, he's been turned over to the feds. No word on what will happen to the fake victim and her daughter. Now, if you was a foundational black and you pull some shit like this, you go to prison. They said no word. This broad ain't even been arrested. She ain't even been arrested.
Did she make a police report and state that she was attacked?
The whole thing was a scam. They should be deported immediately. I should be raiding their house right now and putting them on a boat back home immediately. But my point is immediately. They should not be. They should not be able to stay. You faked the crime. That's a federal crime. You didn't. She didn't even have to do that, but she was trying to scheme and scam. Now, my point is, now this is Minnesota. If you tried that in Louisiana, let me tell you what's going to happen to you. Number one, first of all, you ain't going to have no police chief down there talking about, well, we need immigrants here that could state these crimes. They're not going to do all that. I'm going to tell you where they're going to send you. I'm going to tell you the difference. They're going to send you to the place right here, and I'm getting ready to name. You're going to FCI Pollock 9 times out of 10. Which they call that a medium security prison. Remember when I told you that dude, one of the guys from the highs or the lows, they got indicted in that RICO up here that was selling fentanyl or whatever the case may be? And a couple weeks ago, I found out where it was at. I think we'll look that up tonight too. When they say medium security, in your mind, you're probably thinking like, oh, kind of halfway. No. Nah, it don't work like that. Yeah, they're put it like this. Their medium down in the South is like one of our worst supermax. Our worst of the worst here ain't even close to their mediums. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, you go down there and they mediums. It's not no walk in the park. And if you do a violent crime, you getting sent to a medium or a max. You see what I'm saying? So, in Louisiana, if you pulled some mess like that, if you filed a fake police report, and especially being undocumented, you going to a federal prison. It ain't gonna be no ifs, ands, or buts. You going to a federal prison before you get deported, if you make it out of there. And them federal prisons, they got a whole immigration for illegal. They got a whole prison for illegals down in Louisiana. That one's so bad to the point where the human rights organization's been going in, and blacks are going to be in there too. So they're working under the pretense that you're just the worst of the worst criminal. So when you go into those type of institutions, it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough, especially dealing with the administration. Now we're talking about the feds, and let's get back over here to the state. Now, there was some. You were asking about the laxed. How did they even, in the first place, get out? Well, what they said initially was what? They said that it was the plumber man. Here's why the plumber man is probably going to end up getting off. Now, here's one of my bigger issues with the plumber man is y'all going to put him in one of those facilities. Now, he's a worker. You're saying that he cut the pipe, he did this. He's saying that he was under duress. Now, this is
No. That's all, hold on, DP. That's all been, he lawyered up now.
Right?
So that's all been, he's got a whole new deal now. He's got a whole new story. His story now is that the night before, those inmates flooded the prison. I don't know, they must have clogged the toilets or something. They flooded the whole prison. So he's saying that his boss told him to turn off the water.
Who's his boss?
Before he went, whoever his boss was, he said, before I left for my shift, my boss told me to turn the water off.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's his new story. As far as being threatened to be shanked, that also happened, but he's saying that happened frequently.
Of course. Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing about, and some people may say he's changing his story, but here's the thing. We got to keep in mind it's already been established by the way that they've handled. I've never seen a state handle their security institutions like this. It's a total embarrassment.
You never see a state have 11 inmates escape in 1 week.
Not to this degree.
No, that's ever in America?
That's not an inmate problem. At this point, I'm kind of damn near halfway on the inmate side. Like, okay, this is embarrassing. This is not an inmate problem. The inmates, they're criminals. They're gonna do what they do. You ain't go shit. If you open up a door for me, I'm not gonna go stay in this hellhole.
Did the kid who escaped today? Or yesterday?
There was another.
Escape last week?
We gonna get into that, but before we do, I want to play. But before we do,
Trayvon.
Yeah, now we gonna get to him, and he was the dude. You said, well, he's armed and dangerous. I said he's smiling. I've never seen anybody smile like that in a mugshot. But anyway,
he's not with the 10 though.
No.
Yesterday.
That's Catahoula. That's like 70. That's 100 miles away. We gonna get into that because that's important.
What's going on in Louisiana? What's going on in Louisiana where you got 11 inmates that have escaped your prison in a span of 1 week? That's called dereliction of duty.
I'll tell you, because what's happening is, think about it. Now, let's just say, now think about this for a moment. Let's put it in these terms. You have a business. Let's say you got, now this isn't prison, so we're gonna have to frame it in a different reference. But let's just use this analogy. You got 10 employees, right? And they're going into people's houses. They fixing stuff, they repairing, they painting, they doing this, that, and the third. Now, let's say this is a building and it got a bunch of women that stay in the building. It could be a woman's shelter, it could be whatever. And there's a couple little bad broads up in there. But your employees, they take the notion that Well, we want to smack them on the ass every now and then. Now, most of the women are going to tell you, they're going to say, hey, y'all can't be doing that. But let's say one or two don't mind. But let's say you say, oh, it's okay, this Solomon Restoration. I'm not going to say nothing to my employees at all. As long as these women don't go to the police, and let's say your employees, let's say they get some tricks. Let's say they get some simp ass niggas and some tricks. You know? Let's say they figure, well, they'll just tell the girl, oh, well, you on Section 8, you ain't got nothing going on. I give you $500 out my check. So every time now you giving him a front on his check. Now, he gonna work. He gonna show up to work he gonna get his 40 hours a week. But you give him a front. So now what you doing is you kind of empowering the situation. You haven't told your employees, hey, don't smack her on the butt no more. You basically said, well, you know, as long as she don't go to the police, you know, I just give you the $500. She on Section 8. She only pays $8 a month. You give her $500 every other week. She gonna look past it. What you've now done, bro, is you have empowered an entire tyranny system. Now, nobody's been raped, nobody's been beat, but every one of your employees is like, well, Solomon, you didn't tell me that I can't smack him on the butt. You just said just give him the $500. And this goes on for 10, 15 years. Then one of your employees violates one of them. One of the women says, no, I don't want to do this. And you're like, well, I've been giving you $500 a week. I've been giving you every 2 weeks. And she says that one time, I don't want to do this. I don't want to have a freak off. I don't want to have a freak off. You know what I'm saying? And so that's Louisiana. You got wardens, you got prosecutors, judges, you got all kind of. That's why I told you, they don't want the feds to come in here. You were like, oh, well, they going to send feds on a New Jack and G Street and mess with their YouTube channel and all that. No. Before they do that, they'll probably try to figure out some kind of way that they can set them up. That ain't gonna work either. But this is so bad because this is New Orleans. You're talking about one of the most cultured cities in America. Do you know that people fly from different countries to come to New Orleans? And the nice thing about New Orleans is, this is what I like about New Orleans. It's not one of those cities. You know how like you could go to Memphis, you could go into the barbecue. If you want to kind of ignore black folks, you can. You could just go straight to Elvis. You see what I'm saying? Can't do that in New Orleans. When you go to New Orleans, you must admit that the fabric of that city was based on the descendants of slaves. It's all through the entire city. You can't deny it. From the food to the music, there's nowhere you can go in that city where you can't just see black everywhere. Even though the black folks don't have as much power as the whites, that's a black city. You can't really go. If you were to take black out of New Orleans, like, oh, well, let's just gentrify New Orleans, you wouldn't have New Orleans no more. There's no point to have tourism whatsoever because the city is so deeply rooted in foundational black American culture. You would not have a New Orleans without us. Everything that people go to that city for, the gumbo, the food, the second lines, the music, everything is undeniably and undebatably, if that's a word, foundational black American culture and roots. You see what I'm saying? So, you know, that's what people go for. You would, I say it all the time, when you get down there, you could tell something happened. You could tell something very desolate happened. It's a feeling of, I don't even know how to even express it. It's a heavy feeling. When you get to the city, it's not like, it don't feel like somebody's gonna string you up. It's not that kind of feeling. It's just a different kind of feeling. It's dangerous as hell. I mean, it's real dangerous, but it don't feel that way all the time. It feels like grandma's house, but it's dangerous as the motherfucker down there. But it's a tourist city. So people let you know, like, just watch your pockets. If you're going out there in the French Quarter late at night and stuff, I mean, you know, you don't really want to. You probably, I mean, people are out all the time, but you just gotta kind of watch. You just gotta kind of watch yourself and stuff like that in the French court, even at night, because you know folks is pickpocketing, and that's a big thing down there. You know, it's not. It ain't a slow country bumpkin feeling of a city. It's slow, but it ain't. It's fast paced. Ain't nobody slow down there. You know what I'm saying? It's high speed. So, you know, but it's so many different people. That's why when they had that shooting, when that cowardly dude went and ran through the you know, try to go through the truck and all, you see Master P and all them, the city, they said, all right, we back to normal, back to business. You didn't really hear them shut down New Orleans that long, if you notice. They got back to business. They got back. They got back. Yeah, they weren't going. That's not the kind of operation you shut down for too long. So the rest of the world's looking and saying, okay, what have you been doing to these Negroes down here? We get it. Yeah, you're saying they're criminals, they're murderers. All right, okay, they've been convicted of that. But what the hell? How do you have a situation like this? That's called incompetence. That's called just being, just like I explained with, you know, if you do at your company, you just gonna let your employees just smack the butts of the residents? You're not gonna tell them just do your job and go home? You gonna tell them that it's okay to smack their butts as long as they don't press a lawsuit? And you're gonna do this for 10 to 15 years. That's what they do with the Louisiana prison system. They're like, okay, well that lock is fixed. Oh, that camera don't work. Oh, this, that, and the third. Oh, we ain't gonna spend the money here. Oh, it's 14 million sitting up here. Kickbacks. I'm gonna play. Yeah,
but the feds are gonna be there now. Shit,
well, now they have to.
That escaped from your prison in the span of 1 week from your prisonal system. The feds are coming to see you, and they're going to do a full investigation. Even though it's the governor, wasn't the mayor or governor that's doing an audit?
Yeah, the governor's gonna do what they call a good old boy audit. What he's gonna try to do, well, now he got eyes on him, so it's not a good look. Just like what I said with the federal judge that ruled Friday that officials from Angola, they got to take precautions to protect inmates to work in the prison fields on high temps. Basically, give them water, get the AC cut on and stuff. There's a picture I'm looking at right now. You got a white man on a horse. Now, what does this sound like to you, bro? You got a white man with a horse with a bunch of inmates with some tools and a hoe walking behind him. What era of time does that remind you of?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? If I send you this picture right now and you look at it, if you were to take their clothes and put some clothes on, when we used to watch Roots, remember when Kunta was fresh off the boat and Fiddler was calling him a guinea man and all that kind of stuff? And he was telling, remember when we always talk about this, and you know, one day we're gonna do a full breakdown of Roots. I think it's only right. But you remember when Fiddler was basically telling Kunta, nigga, you ain't never gonna be free. Your name is Toby. Yeah. Your name ain't Fiddler. I don't want to hear nothing about that African guinea man shit. He said, you is a nigga, and that's gonna be the bottom line. You ain't never gonna be free. I don't know where Fiddler's been on. You got to think, Fiddler's been on that plantation forever. You know, he said about it. You know, an African. He said, "What's that?" Like, you know, I'm a nigga. You know what I'm saying? He don't know. He knows the plantation. He knows Black American slave system, white supremacy at its fullest. I'm not gonna be free, and you ain't gonna be free either, guinea man. So you might as well get that out your head. But Kunta wanted to be free. And once Fiddler got to the point where he was like, okay, he's not gonna stop. Like he doesn't want to be on this plantation. He wants to go home. He probably will never make it home, but he wants to go home. And remember when Fiddler got to a point where he was like, okay, well, I'm gonna help him. I know it's gonna cause me some pain because remember, Fiddler picked Kunta. Fiddler was the one that picked him out of the slave block. Like, okay, yeah, he'd be good. And the master gave him and told Fiddler, you train him, you break him. I need you to remove him of all his structure. I don't want to hear none of this more African stuff no more. You train him to be a nigga on this plantation that's gonna pick this cotton and bring me some babies. That's what I need you to do, Fiddler. And Fiddler, that was his job. That's what he had to do. He ain't had no choice. You see what I'm saying? So he had to assimilate Kunta, and Kunta eventually assimilated. But he always kind of said, well, I'll just keep, I'll keep as much as I, of my heritage as I can. You know what I'm saying? So, he passed those stories down to his kids, like, just don't forget, you a slave and all that, but you don't forget where I came from. You know what I'm saying? So you're dealing with, when you look at this picture, that's what it reminds me of. It reminds me of some shit from Roots. So now, as the feds are coming in, the feds, they probably don't really care, but they're gonna do the P. Diddy. They gonna do the P. Diddy investigation. You know what I'm saying? When them feds come in, they gonna ask some questions. And locals, remember, during the time when the feds were just starting to get their stuff together, and you had race soldiers that in like Mississippi, and remember how they killed Medgar Evers, and the local state authorities never looked well upon the feds. Actually, 1 in 3 feds they say were actual Klan, from my knowledge. But even when the feds came down there to ask questions, what did Mississippi say? We got our own law down here. That's what people from Mississippi was saying. The sheriff and all them. The feds were like, hey, we got some questions, man. We got some missing Negroes, and this white man came down here and he done went missing, and what's going on? What did they tell you? Kind of the same thing that Minnesota's saying to ICE, and if you look at it, it's in reverse. We not gonna listen to the feds. We not gonna abide by the law. Mississippi said, we ain't gonna abide by the law. We got our own law down here. The feds is like, what? Like, this is federal law. That supersedes state law. You can't tell us what you're not gonna do. And then white folks basically told the feds, kiss their ass. We ain't doing shit. We gonna kill us some niggas down here, and we gonna string them up if we want to. You ain't gonna do shit. So the feds had a lot of issue. They don't want the feds poking their nose around the prisons, because they gonna be like, okay, how'd this weapon get up in here? How'd this cheeseburger get up in here? What's up with this lock? This is 10 murders in this one prison in one month. You know what I'm saying? They be like, okay, what happened to the body here? Oh, we buried him in the back. Okay, show me the body. They don't want that kind of stuff, because in Louisiana, when you get killed in the prison, your family members may not even know what happened. They'll just say, oh, he broke his neck. He was mopping and he just fell over. They're not going to tell the family that 5 dudes found him in the bathroom, stabbed him up, raped him, and then they threw him in a closet. They're not going to tell the story that New Jack and them is telling. They ain't going to do that. It's counterproductive. We got an operation to run. What they call it down there is prison pimping. Now, let's move on. Now, you asked the other question. You said, well, they muffed dude's head when they got ready to put him in George Price. They muffed his head. You weren't happy about him muffing his head.
Gary.
I said George Price. You said Derek Price. Okay, I'm sorry. Derek Price.
Gary
Price. Okay,
yeah.
You said they muffed his head. Now, we looked at the charges. Now, Gary Price, let's get this right. All right, let's see here. Oh, damn. This is new. We got to play this right quick before we go.
It's disgusting. Like, really.
Uh-oh. This is hot off the press.
It's disgusting.
What?
Like, really and honest. Maybe if we would have had more protection riding around the jailhouse, have the right deputies in there, maybe this wouldn't have happened. Like, they have kids around here. Like, that really could have turned out bad. You tell me at 1 o'clock they escape, but then you tell us the city, the taxpayers at 10:30. somebody escape and the next day you get up, you got one in the next block from your house. How can you explain that to me? Who I blame is the sheriff. She failed us. As a human being, she failed us. She let the city of New Orleans down.
Love that damn accent. I'm looking at this complex. I never got to see the jail. That's a sister from the residence. She's somebody that lives in the neighborhood right down there by the jail.
Who is she saying let everybody down?
She said the sheriff. She said, I got kids around here. We got people.
I don't understand. What could the sheriff have done?
You know why? The sheriff, let me tell you, for my listeners that don't know, the sheriff is the low Negro grade of what the warden is. The sheriff, she got a nice cushy job. The feds already told her they did an inspection, and the feds basically said, hey, you need to fix this, you need to fix that, you need to fix this, you need to fix this. We got 14 million. She didn't implement the recommendations. So now what she said is she had a bunch of cameras here. I'm gonna be honest, they just dicking off. I'm looking at this building, and I wish I could show you this building. I think we're going to start doing lives where we call through. I got this program where we're going to do like live, so I can start sharing stuff. But this building, they said that one of the jails was fairly new. And this looks like the building where I seen the inmates running across the street, running across the highway. I mean, it's a pretty nice looking building. It's pretty new. It looks pretty new, bro. And if you were to see this building, you would say like, okay, somebody dropped the ball. I mean, it's a big ass building. You got all these inmates that were convicted of rape and murder and all kind of stuff. You got them on the first floor. And you gonna blame the maintenance man. And even if the maintenance man did it, where the hell was the 5 guards at? You got one guard that's going for snacks. Yeah, you're responsible. You're the sheriff. Look, bro, if your employees get to smacking the butts of the women that's in these apartments building that you're restoring their apartment, do you think that if a lawsuit comes that they gonna sue directly your employee, or they gonna sue your company? They gonna sue you. They gonna say, all right, man, how long have you known about this? Well, I've known about this for a while. Well, Solomon, how many butts were smacked? And then you tell them, well, it was about 7 or 8 butts, but that was over a 10-year span. Well, Mr. Solomon, when did you think it was appropriate to tell them to stop? Well, I think they had an agreement, sir, Your Honor. They had an agreement that they would pay $500 every 2 weeks and they could smack their butts. You know what the judge gonna tell you, bro? This is unbelievable. This is incompetence at best. You knew that these women was getting they butt smacked, and because they didn't file any rape charges against you or your employees, and they was getting paid $500 every 2 weeks to get their butt smacked, you thought that this was okay? How are you going to explain that to a jury?
I don't understand. So you're telling me these inmates flood the prison?
Is this
and they flood the prison, the water stops, they stop, they cut a hole, and they get out of the prison, and that's the sheriff's fault.
The sheriff should have had made sure. Here's the number one. The sheriff should have had. You're the sheriff. We paying you $200,000 a year to make sure these Negroes stay in this building. That's all your black ass got to do. And you got one guard going out for snacks. Where's the other 10, 15 guards? Take a look at this damn building, man. If you look at this building, you're like, okay, what happened to the other guards? They were off screwing off, gambling and doing all this kind of stuff or whatever they was doing. They wasn't doing nothing. The sheriff might have been at home by that time. But your employees, what are they doing? That's on your watch. On top of that, the doors need to get fixed. The cameras. The feds already gave an audit. Why didn't you implement it? So this is my thoughts on how New Orleans, how the state of Louisiana operates. I'm not talking about the black folks. I'm talking about the political criminals, justice system, all the folks with the money. Don't spend no money. Let's just let things go as they go. Because remember, I want you to think about this for a moment. You told me, and this is verified, this is documented. Don't believe DP and Solomon. Don't believe the Bagland podcast. Google this for yourself, listeners. The residents of Louisiana wasn't even notified. They didn't even really let people know what was going on till way after the fact. Now,
no, the residents found, or forget the residents. That's one thing. The families, the people who testified against these inmates,
but not just
were
them.
never notified.
You're supposed to notify the public.
They found out from TV.
This is a public service announcement. When you have 10 people that the system says they've committed these crimes, well, now some of them dudes were still going to trial. So they have not been proven guilty yet. Okay? But a lot of these dudes have already been convicted with life sentences. You know what that means? That means they were supposed to have been shipped to Angola a long time ago. Who dropped the ball? Who dropped the ball?
Now here's another thing. Now, even though I'm trying to defend the mayor, there's another thing that nobody's brought up that's very damning towards them. The fucking jail did not know for 10 hours that they were gone.
How? Where were the guards? They said,
God.
The sheriff said the guards don't. The sheriff said the cameras don't work. Okay, yeah, but why didn't you get some new cameras in there? She hasn't given an explanation. That's why she's like, okay, I'm going to suspend my campaign. This ain't looking good. She knows that the black residents of New Orleans ain't going to vote her in again. She ain't getting another vote. She going to take the fall for this, bro.
10 hours. 10 hours. Now, if the inmates would have known that, now if I escape from prison and I have the knowledge that they're not going to know for 10 hours, nigga, I'm buying a fucking Greyhound ticket. I'm not even fucking trying to hide. I got 10 hours where I don't even have to hide.
And they was in contact. They arrested 2 women. They gets arrested a third. They arrested 2 women, which I think the bail was overkill. But they're looking at it like, okay, it's a public safety thing.
Oh, man. What do you mean overkill?
$1 million?
You're tripping.
$250,000.
They're going to saute every hibachi for every single motherfucker involved with that shit, man.
Think about it, man.
Sauteed.
Second-degree murder in Louisiana is $250,000 bail. But this is how they're probably looking at it like this, too. Let's play the devil's advocate. Think about it. Now, me, personally, I think $1 million, that's crazy. That's insane. But then, at the same time, this is how they're looking at it, too. And I want my listeners to listen clear. You empowered 10 people that were potentially convicted murderers, people that you know they're convicted murderers. Now you know that these women that did it, they know who did it. I'm saying that's their family members or somebody they love. Now, in their mind, they like, well, that's my cousin, that's my family. I'm gonna help them. I get it. I might help my cousin too. Shit. That's besides the point. The public's like, nigga, you freed and helped and assisted somebody that kills some people. That's free, that might do something to some more people. So we're going to make the bail so high that you can't even put your house up. None of these folks that did that, you know they ain't got no $1 million house. What is it, 10%? Bail's 10%. You need $250,000 to get out of jail. Ain't nobody got $250,000. They don't know nobody.
And then if they did, they're going to put it up for them. So they'll show up to court one time, that house is coming home. Yeah, but here's the thing. Here's a key nugget right here. Now, the clip I just sent you of the white sheriff of that other county who's talking about the kid that escaped last night.
All right, let's
You can see the look on his face. If you see the look on his face, he's cooked. He knows I'm done.
At this point.
I'm fired.
So if you'll give me a brief moment. This incident actually began.
Now this happened in the parish. Now I want my listeners to understand what a parish is, because some people be like, what's a parish? In Minnesota, we got counties. Most states got counties. Louisiana got parishes. It's like a county. Now, I'll go into the details of what a parish really is later on, but just think of it as a county. Hennepin County, Ramsey County, Sherburne County. What's another county we got? We got let me see, Ramsey County, Hennepin County, Sherburne County, Goodhue County, Ramsey, Hennepin, Washington County. What's the one in Burnsville? I think that's Hennepin County. I can't think of it for the life of me, man. Dakota County. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got counties. In Louisiana, they have parishes.
And came to our attention about 10 p.m. last night. We actually got a phone call from an individual that was anonymous, and he inquired as to the whereabouts of Trayvon Johnson, 22 years old, who is an inmate in our jail, and he's there for homicide and other related charges.
Now I'm gonna pause this real quick. I just want to look at some of the comments and people said, you got one dude that says he was gone over 8 hours before anyone knew anything. I want the governor to have the same energy he had for New Orleans Sheriff Office. Another person says, you got to be joking. These correctional officers are being paid under $17 an hour. That's outrageous. Then another person said negligence, not human error. Kindergartners can count. Then another person said $16 an hour to work in the jail. What the F? Why would anybody want that job? All right. So my listeners, I want y'all to listen clear. You're a guard and $16 an hour. Now this play, I'm trying to pronounce it. I remember one of the guys from the New Jack pronounced it. He said he been out here too, to this parish. And we gonna get some commentary on that too, because that's very important. This parish ain't like New Orleans Parish. It's a lot smaller jail. It looks kind of rural. It looks kind of out the way. I'm trying to get this louder.
He didn't identify himself. The caller didn't. But he basically inferred that we might need to check his whereabouts. So at that time, jail staff went back to the dorm where he was assigned. He was not there. Lockdown ensued. A count ensued to confirm that they were one short. I was notified, as well as other people in my administration. Upon arrival, we did another count and confirmed they were actually one short.
All right, let me see if I could get some better audio here, because the audio that I got is not the best. Let's do this one.
To the latest on that in just a moment, but deputies across Tangipahoa Parish have spent all morning scouring neighborhoods.
Look at that smile.
It's in subdivisions for Trayvon Johnson. The escapee here is one of 3 people accused in a deadly home invasion from 2022 that left a man dead and his daughter hurt. And get this, we learned that he escaped yesterday at 4:30 in the afternoon, but the sheriff's office didn't know he was gone until somebody called in a tip around 10 p.m. For more on that timeline and the active search that's happening right now, let's send things over to North.
God, bro, if man, let me tell you something.
That same thing happened there. If
you seen this, you know, and I'm trying to stay focused. What Dr. Umar says, stay focused. If you can see this newscaster right here, nigga.
You're baddie.
Man.
North Shore Bureau reporter.
His assistant about to talk, man. I'm telling you.
Shawanda Jones. She joined us now live from outside of the jail. And Shawanda, what are leaders telling you this afternoon?
Lord.
Well, Randy, first we're going to start with community reaction. A lot of people may find it hard to believe that an inmate could escape from the same jail twice within a year's time, but here we are in Amite. Now, you are now looking at 22-year-old Trayvon Johnson. He was one of 4 inmates who escaped from the Tangipahoa jail last May, and now he's on the run again.
I'm looking at this Paris jail. It don't look hard to break out.
Johnson has been sitting behind bars here in Amite for 3 years. He just met court.
Hold on. He said 3 years. What's this? Hold on.
Sitting behind bars here in Amite for 3 years. He just met court May 5th for 7 serious pending charges, including murder. His jury trial date is scheduled to begin September 22nd.
So basically, now I want y'all to understand this, and it took me a long time to figure this out. But I started learning about it listening to New Jack. Now, like I say, I used to hear stories, and because the internet is a lot more robust and things, what we're listening to right now, I want everybody to understand, this ain't the worst part. It used to be worse than this. It was worse. There was more murders in these prisons. There was more stabbings, more rapes, all kind of stuff. This is just the tip of the iceberg. This is when the prisons kind of got so-called cleaned up. And they're still kind of crazy down there. But I want my listeners to understand that it was no walk in the park in the 90s, 98, 99. The horror stories that you used to hear about, we used to watch certain movies and we'd be like, damn, that really happened? That is somewhat sort of a past. Not in Louisiana. They're still operating like the 80s and the 70s in the way how those prisons operate. So I just want people to understand that. Now, another thing, when you're in these parish prisons, they call them parish prisons. We call them county jails up here. Now, the parish prisons down there are like the county jails. When you get charged for a crime in that parish prison, sometimes you might end up in Angola. They'll move you around and you're still in trial. So in your mind, you're thinking like, okay, well, yeah, I haven't got sentenced yet, but you might go to a prison that's a medium or close to a max, and you're still in trial. Up here in Minnesota,